right side, to the 10, to the 5, touchdown! 6, going to the hoop, puts it up, puts it in! A fantastic play.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Magnolia Fields podcast, Maroon and White edition. I'm Tanner Marlar alongside Cody Blaszczak, back with all things Mississippi State from the Richard Schwartz and Associates studios. And Cody, were you at this previous Mississippi State football game, or did you watch it?
Buddy, I was... You remember what other game was on during that time?
Did you split screen it, though? Did you multi-view this thing?
I was having a heart attack. I was panicking for the last 3 hours.
Fan.
But I did have it pulled up on my phone.
There you go.
Here and there, I was keeping an eye on it closely. I did go back and rewatch it. And I will say, if that team comes out at the beginning of the year, they're not 1-6.
I agree. Mississippi State drops to number 14, Texas A&M, 34-24. We're already at the midweek point. Everybody knows the scores. But the big storyline coming out of this one, Michael Van Buren, and again, his now third start, just still looks really, really, really good. Even though he's not getting a lot of protection and he's not really getting any kind of outside help.
In the month of October, he has been the best SEC quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's got 6 touchdown passes on the year. This is the Lebby offense that fans were promised.
Yeah, and this is... I've said it before, I'll say it again. I wanted him starting the season, and I think they'd be a lot better if he did. And that's no discredit to Blake Shapen. It is no discredit. I just think that he is your guy. He's young. You get him in the system early. He learns, and he continues to learn and improve week to week. And what really aggravates me, and as I understand you've got to make your decisions, you got to go with the veteran. I think this team is 4-2 if he starts the season.
I disagree. Now, not on any fault of Michael Van Buren. I think the defense is just that bad.
I do too, but they're scoring a lot with him now.
Well, I look back at the last game with Shapen in Florida, right? Shapen's a quarterback for that matchup, and the offense looks markedly better. I think you have a good offense at this point either way. I think Van Buren's a little more dangerous with his legs, but I think Shapen could place the football a little bit better. Now, not saying Van Buren places it poorly, but that's my thought. Now, that truthfully does not matter. What matters right now is, one, that this offense continuously improves towards the end of the season, right? Because that's what's got fans riding this small, minuscule hype train behind Lebby right now. And no matter what, and I'm going to say this right now, on this show today, I think Mississippi State is well within their rights to eat it and clean house on the defensive side of the ball if this continues.
Yeah, it's a disturbing defense. It is historically, when you look at Mississippi State, you expect kind of the opposite. Good defenses, not as great offenses. And it's obviously an offensive-minded head coach, but it's still disturbing to watch.
Even during the Leach years, right? And this is supposed to be one of the best offensive-minded coaches in the league. And don't get me wrong, Mike Leach put together a 9-win Mississippi State football team before he tragically left us. The defense arguably was the best part of that team. The best part of all of those teams. So I look at this roster, and I will relent this. Coleman Hutzler has zero talent to work with on that side of the ball. But you know why he's got zero talent to work with on that side of the ball? Because the last 2 or 3 recruiting cycles for the defensive side of the ball have been utterly atrocious. And you bring in Hutzler on the promise that, hey, maybe we can get some recruits. Maybe we can be a little bit better. And to their credit, they currently have the number 1 defensive lineman, or the number 1 overall JUCO recruit in the country committed. The question is, can you keep him in the boat? But right now, Mississippi State is losing defensive commits left and right. And that cannot happen. I could stomach it if the defense was this bad, but we had a lot of good players coming in to fix it. And at the outset, that was the case. And now, David Turner and Coleman Hutzler are losing those prospects. And unless they kill it in the transfer portal this offseason, and Xavion Hardy comes in and is the one guy on this Mississippi State defensive line that is going to require 2 offensive linemen to block him, it's not going to get any better. It's just not.
It's what's aggravating, at least for a team like this and what the future looks like, is you have such a talented young quarterback, and is it going to be wasted in Starkville?
Because you can't stop anybody.
Yeah. I mean, for granted, he might be fun to watch, and the offense might be fun to watch.
But if
it
you're
doesn't
letting up
really
40
matter.
points a game, it doesn't matter.
It does not matter if you cannot get the result you need.
No. And I think that there are a couple things. There are a lot of things this Mississippi State defense is missing, but a couple of them are huge. Every SEC team needs a guy up front that's going to eat up at least 2 blockers. Tell me who on this defensive line takes a double team to get rid of. Not a soul.
You're not wrong.
A soul.
You talk about things that are missing. I think there's effort missing too.
I
think it's getting better.
That's another thing.
But I think there is a mindset for that defense that is, we're not great. We kind of know it, so we're not going to play.
And there are guys that give great effort. Isaac Smith gives great effort. Stone Blanton gives great effort.
Not about the entire defense, but
there are key players on that defense that in moments don't play.
And I can't, of course, I'm drawing a blank, but a couple of weeks ago, I think against Georgia, when you just let the guy catch the ball at the 7-yard line and you don't even try to tackle him, like, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
I understand you're frustrated, you're already losing, and I'm not saying that Mississippi State would have beat Georgia, but it might have been closer than 10 points.
Yeah. If you just tackle the guy. You already got him wrapped up.
It's not a guaranteed touchdown. You might force a field goal.
You already got him wrapped up. Just tackle him.
It's effort needs to change. It needs to skyrocket, and it just feels like heads may not be in the right space.
On 1st and 2nd down this last weekend, this Mississippi State defense looked as good as it has all season long, if not better than it has all season long. And then they refused to get off the field on 3rd down. It didn't matter if it was 3rd and 12. It seemed like Texas A&M converted. On 3rd down, you couldn't have convinced me Connor Weigman wasn't a Heisman contender this past weekend.
And to where I was about to go, the issue with the Mississippi State defense, besides the fact that they just aren't very good, is they make every quarterback they play, they make them look like Heisman contenders. They did it with Graham Mertz in Florida. They just did it with Connor Weigman.
Now, Weigman threw a couple, and they picked Weigman off a couple times.
They did.
I will say, I think this is more, and I will always say this, I think this is more on the scheme and the defensive line than anything else.
I still don't think that every time you play a different quarterback, they should look like the best in the nation.
I agree, but a lot of that's getting pressure and in your scheme. And the scheme is horrible. No SEC team is going to be able to compete in this conference with 3 down linemen on 50% of the snaps. Not going to happen. You're going to get ran over, okay? And then, on top of that, if you can't pressure the quarterback with any kind of defensive line, if you have to blitz 6 in order to get pressure, they're going to dice and slice you. It's not a winning formula the way this defense is playing. And that's sad because the way this offense is playing is getting people to buy into the program.
Well, what really makes me think is, you're right, the offense is playing great right now, and they're fun to watch. What really gets me, though, is they're against Georgia, they put up 31-24 against A&M. But if Van Buren had a little more help from his O-line, I'm very much curious how much better this offense would look.
You got to keep the receiving core together, and you got to beef up the offensive line this year if you're Jeff Lebby or this offseason. And that's not too tall of a task.
Well, like you said, keeping the wide receiving core together, through 6 games or 7 games, it's already proven that Mario Craver is a freak, and the dude can play.
Yeah.
That's a guy to watch moving forward. Keep him and Van Buren together, and I'm not going to say they're going to be the best duo, but they're going to be a great duo in college football.
I saw somebody the other day making the comparison between Dak and Darunya, RIP, and Craver and Van Buren. I was like, I kind of see some similarities there. So, but either way, somewhat winnable games on the slate ahead for Mississippi State.
Who do you have in the Arkansas one?
That's the thing. I think it's a toss-up right now.
I think it's toss-up, but
because we've seen Mississippi State can score.
We've seen they can score, and I had State over A&M last week. I thought they had a real chance, but I'm not very high on A&M as it is, but I think State is going to walk out with a win early.
Could do it. We'll see. I've got Arkansas on this one by just a hair. Hope I'm proven wrong. We're going to take a short break here from the Richard Schwartz and Associate Studios. Come back and talk some Hail State soccer, a top 5 team here in Starkville. I'm excited. Cody's excited. All that and more right after the break here on the Magnolia Fields Maroon and White Edition.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, you know who to call. Call me. Remember, one call, that's all.
Welcome to the Richard Schwartz and Associates Magnolia Field Studios. One call, that's all.
Back here from the Richard Schwartz and Associates Studios, Tanner Marlar alongside Cody Blaszczak. If you're just joining us here on the Magnolia Fields Maroon and White Edition, just got done absolutely, I guess, slicing and dicing the Mississippi State football program before their matchup with Arkansas this weekend. Let's get into a football program that we can't fault for quite literally anything, Cody.
No, you can't fault. Literally, there is nothing to fault about.
No.
What I will say is they did go up to number 2 in the RPI, and they're down to 5. Now, you still can't fault them because they've just played really bad teams. Ole Miss being one of them. Got the Magnolia Cup last Friday, and I mean, they've been on a tear this entire season. 13-1 is just outrageous. They are 7-0 in conference. They've set every single program record possible just about at this point, with conference wins, winning streaks, records. I mean, they're setting every record you could possibly set at this point. Yeah. And it's insane.
It's wild. It's wild.
And the season's coming to an end. They've got 3 games left on the schedule. Tomorrow at 6:30, they got Kentucky at home. They travel on the road for A&M on Sunday, which should have been the SEC regular season finale. But due to a weather cancellation with South Carolina, they're going to play a week from today to make up that South Carolina matchup. And that'll be a good one.
That'll be a good one.
I'm not sure that's the way you want to end your schedule, to be completely honest. But
if you end it with a win, it's huge.
What I'm saying is I much rather would have played them when they were scheduled to play than make it the last game of the season.
Yeah, fair.
Because South Carolina is not a joke.
No,
that's
they're a good team. They're a good team.
So, yeah, this team's doing a lot of good things. They are obviously 7-0 in conference play, which means that they're at the top of the SEC. If the season were to end today, they are the number 1 seed. And even if they lose, they will still lose once, that is. They should be the number 1 seed depending on how everything else goes, because they have the head-to-head over Arkansas, who's at number 2.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're number 3 in just about every rankings, and you can make an argument that they should be higher. I'm not necessarily sure that's true, just because number 2 is a team that beat you. So, in Wake Forest, and then Tanner, there's a real possibility this team might be a number 1 overall seed in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, you're still looking
number 1 overall. Excuse me.
You're looking at a number 1 seed. You're looking at a potential number 1 seed bid, and then on top of that, you're looking at anywhere from a top 10 to a top 5 RPI spot.
They're sitting at 5 as of today. RPI came out yesterday. It should only go up, especially with that South Carolina matchup at the end of the season.
That's what I'm saying. I think if you win that one, that's a really good boost.
Yeah, your last 2 games were Missouri and Ole Miss, which are 2 of the
Bad
worst
teams.
SEC teams. So, and you won that Missouri 5-0, Ole Miss 2-0 with 2 ridiculous goals from Zoe Main, might I add. But yeah, this is, wow. Who would have thought soccer would be this good in Starkville?
I'm excited. I got a story coming out with a couple players on that team today. I'm excited. On into women's hoops. And when we walked in here this morning, we said, we have got to give Sam Purcell and his staff some shine because, my goodness, what a recruiting effort in that 2025 class.
Yeah, what is happening? My Lord.
Well, when Sam Purcell was hired, it was as a recruiter, as someone who could go out and get you the big names and beat out a lot of these other schools for those names. And he's doing just that. I mean, in just the 2025 class so far, you've got Natalia Gray, you've got Jayla Lampley, her teammate, and then Madison Francis. That is 3 of the best, of the top 50 players in women's high school basketball in this class, all coming to Mississippi State.
And it feels like it's only going to get better.
It does. It does.
It doesn't feel like a one-off season. It feels, since Sam Purcell has gotten here, it feels as it's just growing and becoming more and more and more, and kind of fell off last season, just went on a stretch and to end the season where Mississippi State kind of just fell off. I hate to say it, but they did. And it feels like rebuilding, like after having a season like that and still getting these names, that's not an easy task.
No, it's not.
So Sam Purcell able to do this and get this women's basketball squad back to what people expect them to be, it is a huge plus for him. And I think there are some exciting days coming for this women's team.
Well, and here's the thing, too, with this Purcell squad is this is one of the first years where there's only 1 or 2 players now on this roster that are from the previous administration, and they were just committed when he came here, right? This is going into his 3rd season. Debrisha Poe, obviously, has been here a while, and she's going to be fantastic this year. But it's beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's Jerkayla Jordan and Debrisha Poe's team right now. And there are a couple other transfers he brought in, couple really good recruits. But this is kind of, and we'll talk men's in a little bit, of kind of the same situation. This is one of the first years where it's all Purcell's girls. And I'm intrigued to see what that team looks like. Because if you've noticed, watching the rosters over the last years, he got handed a lot of pretty solid bigs, right? But his play style doesn't really cater to that. And his coaching style doesn't really cater to that. It's really guard heavy. And don't get me wrong, the girls and the recruits that he's getting have got some size, but the common denominator between them is they can all score relatively well at 3 levels, right? And I think that's the kind of team that Sam Purcell wants to run. I really thought you got an excellent look at the exact type of team Purcell wants to coach. If you watch the game against Belmont last year, Mississippi State goes to Belmont and I think loses that game in women's hoops. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar with Belmont women's hoops, get familiar. They're fantastic.
If I recall, that was a game that went down to the buzzer.
Yes. I mean, it was a neck and neck game all the way through. I think Belmont winds up taking a narrow win. Belmont women's hoops is fantastic. Go watch. But I think that's the type of team that Purcell wants to coach, a team full of hungry, athletic, quick guards that can get out in transition and score from 3.
And I think it also helps when you look at this roster. It's, like you said, a lot of his girls now with a couple like Jerkayla Jordan that are coming back. But what I'm a fan that she is coming back and some of the other players, but there's a mix. It's not top heavy. It's not top heavy in seniors or top heavy in freshmen. There is like a perfect mix of veterans and underclassmen. And I think that is something that he is going to be very good at taking advantage of in close games where, yeah, you might have some really talented underclassmen, but they haven't been in these situations or these moments before. And you do have some transfers and some other players that have played in big games. They can go and manage a game.
Yeah, and I like how on this team, there's really only two or three sure enough bigs, right? Rocio Jimenez, obviously 6'7" redshirt freshman center. You look at Kayla Thomas, who can rotate in at the 5. She's about 6'2". Medina Okada, 6'6", but she can move. She's light on her feet, and so is Jimenez. And then Quinera Montague, obviously, I think is the more athletic of the trio, but is only 6'5". Now, I think you'll see all three of those this year used in different capacities, but I think that the Purcell coaching style moves away a little bit from running through the Jessica Carters as opposed to running around the Jimenez.
And I think it's also a good thing that the three that you just listed all have multiple years
Eligibility.
left. Yes. So it's time to really get them into the offense, into your system, and play.
Yeah.
It's not like you get them for 1 year and you got to figure out someone to take that spot. You get to build around them for a couple of years now.
And building they are. I'm excited to see what this women's team can do this year.
We're so close to basketball
I know,
season.
I'm so ready. 2 weeks, little less than 2 weeks. Oh, can't wait. We're going to talk some more hoops right after the break, get into some Mississippi State men's basketball and head coach Chris Jans, Josh Hubbard, and all things fun. I'm excited. I'm really excited. All that and more here in just a moment on the Magnolia Fields Maroon and White edition.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, you know who to call. Call me. Remember, one call, that's all.
Welcome back to the Magnolia Field Studios, brought to you by Richard Schwartz and Associates. One call, that's all.
Welcome back into the Magnolia Fields podcast, Maroon and White edition. If you heard the ooh a little bit.
Timing is a bit off.
Timing was a bit off. Sorry. Screen flashed. I went. Sue me. Cody, let's talk defense. Let's do it. Let's talk Mississippi State men's basketball. It's here. We're here, Cody.
We're here.
We're here. I can see it. It's right there, right ahead of us. The home opener, the season opener for Mississippi State hoops. There may be 2 tournament teams in Starkville again. I'm so excited.
Are you?
Yes.
I can tell.
Yes. Yes.
How excited?
Scale of 1 to 10, 11.
Okay.
Which is dangerous.
Which is
dangerous. Which is dangerous.
Is it one of those years you get a little too excited just to be let down?
They're probably going to rip my heart out as they do every year, but I'm used to it at this point, and
The
I'm
good
getting
thing
excited.
is there will be exciting moments.
There will be. I can promise you there will be exciting moments.
Courtesy of a dude named Josh Hubbard.
Yeah, and with that being said, let's just go ahead and get into this 2024-25 roster, right? Starting with Josh Hubbard, obviously the biggest returner on this team. I think you could argue Cam Matthews, of course, but Josh Hubbard, the centerpiece of your offense late last season and will probably be the centerpiece of your offense this year, should be the centerpiece of your offense this year. He's back. Cody, they always say the biggest jump that you take in college basketball is from your freshman to your sophomore season. And if Josh Hubbard has made a really big jump, that's scary.
That is terrifying.
Yeah, that's horrifying.
You say the biggest guy coming back. I think he is the smallest dude on the roster.
I didn't mean in terms of stature.
But yeah, this is a kid that he's fun to watch, and he is really good. And I wish he was 6'2", 6'3", because I can't imagine how good he'd be then.
I'm telling you right now,
thing is, he would not be here.
I was going to say, if Josh Hubbard were 6'2", 6'3", he'd be playing for the University of Arkansas, Duke University, or Kentucky, or Kansas.
He might be in the NBA.
He also may be in the NBA.
Yeah, I would argue he's in the NBA after what he did last year. Nonetheless, though, this dude can go.
Yeah. I mean, 17.1 points per game last year. The first true freshman to win the Bailey Howell Trophy, which is an insane statistic. In all of Mississippi college basketball history, a true freshman has never won the Bailey Howell Award. Josh Hubbard did, which is wild. Malik Murphy, who was supposed to be a top 5 recruit, never won the Bailey Howell Award.
Just crazy.
It's insane. It's insane.
Is it shame on me for thinking this, but he was second team All SEC media.
Yeah.
And third team. I feel like there's a little more to him.
Well, and here's the deal. He gets second team preseason All SEC, which is wild to me.
I don't think that's wild.
But the SEC is, well, I mean, let me rephrase. It's wild to me that he can get second team SEC, but State is picked to finish like 10th in the conference. That's what's wild to me.
That is a wild thing. I just think it, for one, I think it shows you that people don't believe in Mississippi State, which to an extent is understandable, but you look and see what Jans has done the past couple of years.
Get it.
But I think it just speaks to the history.
I don't get it. Keeping on with the roster, though, Cam Matthews obviously back, 6'7", Olive Branch alumni, the dunk machine, the rebound machine, the do-it-all machine, built like the Incredible Hulk. I'm excited to see him in his graduate season, and Jans and company are very fortunate that he decided to come back.
Give him some pads and a helmet, and
he could go play tight end
back too.
He'll go play running back. No, that's a tight end if I've ever seen it. Oh my goodness. Then we get into some names that some either A, may not be familiar with, or B, may not be expecting. From everyone that I've talked to within this program and surrounding it, there's been one consistent message. Josh Hubbard has had a great offseason, but Keyshawn Murphy has had the best offseason out of anybody. And looking at his measurables for this season, I can see why. Obviously, 6'10". Would you like to hear how much he's weighing now?
Tell me.
230.
You know what's
He's
scary?
hit the weights.
You know what's scary about a guy like Keyshawn Murphy is a couple of games last season, you kind of saw what the dude can do.
You got flashes, real flashes.
And if that turns into a consistent, happens almost every game, that's a real offensive presence that you have to deal with on top of the fact of Josh Hubbard being who he is.
Yeah.
You had to deal with Keyshawn Murphy, who, like we said, had his moments, was very inconsistent last year, missed some games as well, and just smooth with that height and
smooth.
now that weight.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like he's really hit the weights, bought into the offseason program, trying to vie for a starting spot this year. And I think that has added some extra motivation. I hope Murphy is as good as promised.
He only averaged 4 points a game last year.
I believe he had a season high like 18, though.
He did have things like that, but last year, this is where the inconsistency came in. He had like 4 or 5 games where he had 15, 18, really just paved the way for the offense. And then there were games where he was taking the same shots,
just not making them.
Not making them.
Yeah. If he can add that consistency, it'll be huge. Another end of the transfer portal kind of vibe here with this roster. I think the biggest addition that no one is going to be able to argue, Kanye Clary. Averaged 17 points a game last year in the Big Ten for Penn State. Jans adds him to the roster. Now, Mississippi State will have one of the smaller 1-2 punches in college basketball this year, but they're going to have one of the most electric scoring duos in the SEC and in the country, in Kanye Clary and Josh Hubbard.
I'm not sure it really matters that they are some of the smaller guys and they're going to be real small for Mississippi State because of all the height you have on the rest of the court.
Yeah, I mean, your wings are going to be big. You could go with small ball lineup, though. You could run.
I think that benefits them.
I think it could. I think you could run Hubbard, Clary, Riley Kugel, who we'll talk about in a moment, Cam Matthews, and Keyshawn Murphy, and make a really, really good lineup. Speaking of Riley Kugel, Florida transfer, was originally committed to Ben Howland in Mississippi State, comes in from Florida. This is a guy that was really explosive and really streaky in spurts last year for UF. Now coming to Starkville, I think he's going to take on a much different role as a defender / kind of slasher. But I'm excited to watch him.
This is something that in years past, relating specifically to last year, Jans had some names that came out of the portal. It's whether they pan out or not.
Yeah, but you look at the names last year. I know the one you're talking about, coming from a G5 school.
Correct, he did.
All of these guys, most of these guys are coming from Power 5 conference schools, and they've got serious run at those programs.
My fear is just it's going to hurt if anything similar to last season happens again, because there's a lot of hype, and they still made the tournament, don't get me wrong, but if those players you put so much into pan out, what's the result?
Yeah. So we'll talk some more Mississippi State hoops, especially on the next episode, and I can't wait. But that's kind of your highlights going into the season. The next time we have this talk, we'll be ready to get started. But that's all
We'll
the
be
time.
having a good time.
We will be. That's all the time we've got for this week. As always, thanks for watching, listening here to the Magnolia Fields podcast, Maroon and White edition from Richard Schwartz and Associate Studios. We will catch you guys next time.